She looks over and sees Jimmy Dahl, the 1990 Mustang, qualified number 8 with a 479 to the favored car left side, the underdog on the right. We're staged and ready. Haley James in control. Ladies and gentlemen, top end says 456 with a 7, her best pass of the weekend in the heat. Johnny Drama says, yeah, I'll take it, baby. As Haley James, the number 3 qualifier, will go to round number 2. Jimmy Dahl had trouble right out of the gate and fell almost a second behind at half track. We have to retrieve a part of the right-hand side. Not sure what it was, but it didn't matter as Haley James led wire to wire. Better reaction time, a 1.107. Class leading 60-foot. In the 99 Mustang, the single turbo Coyote setup called the War Eagle will go to round number 2 for Haley James Racing. So they have one car through to round number 2. We'll wait on the second car after we run our next pair. Kelly Shotwell and Joel Greathouse. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Vortex Supercharger versus single turbo battle coming to the line here. So Joel Greathouse, the 2-time and defending class champion, left-hand side, the fuel tank backed ride. Number 2 qualifier, 456 with a 0. Qualified him in the number 2 spot, so he has the favored role here against Kelly Shotwell, the firefighter out of Ohio, the Holly EFI and Vortex Supercharged ride over on the right-hand side. He qualified with a 480, so he comes in here at about a 2/10 disadvantage, but again, a warm surface can leave anything up to possibility. We already saw the number 3 qualifier go right down the left-hand side with no problem. Will Greathouse follow? We're all staged and ready, and Greathouse away on the whole shot. And we'll lead this one wire to wire. Top end says 461, taking out a 482. Greathouse dialed it back just a little bit. 115 on the 60-foot to a 117 for Kelly Shotwell. And it was all over from there as a multi-car link victory for Joel Greathouse will go to round number 2. Kiefer Simpson and Chris Holbrook, our next pair up, another turbo versus supercharger battle. The second car of the Haley James Racing stable, the car they call American Express, left-hand side getting staged up. He qualified number 1, 455 with a 4. He will face the number 10 qualifier, Chris Holbrook. So Chris Holbrook, the Whipple Supercharger's backed ride on the right-hand side. And Simpson will roll in on the left-hand side. He's staged and ready. And Kiefer gets the whole shot. This one's going to be closer than anticipated. 456 with a 1. 483 at 145 for Chris Holbrook. His best pass of the weekend by a bunch. He did the double bump and hoped that it would knock Simpson off his game, but it did not. Simpson with the whole shot. Simpson with the much better pass. 456 at 158. The Indiana-based ride. We'll go to round number 2 with Haley James. Both bullets still in the gun for round number 2. This is Chuck Bartholomew, the Chuck Wagon, out of Maryland, the 1990 Mustang, the Vortex Supercharged ride on the left side. He will face Walter Drakeford, the local racer, the 1986 Mustang out of Clearwater, Florida, with a Procharger, providing artificial atmosphere for him on the right side. Number 4 qualifier on the left, 462. Number 7 qualifier on the right, 474. So favored car on the left side by about 1/10 of a second. Attention in the pits, attention in the pits. I need Coyote stock. Coyote stock for round number 1, Coyote stock. Need you to the lanes, please. I also need Richmond Gear Factory stock. Richmond Gear Factory stock for round number 1. I need G-Force Racing Transmissions Coyote stock. Coyote stock for round number 1. So the favored car left side, the underdog car right side. All of the higher qualified cars thus far have taken the left lane. Here we go. Both on the way, clean and green, whole shot left side, win line stays there as well. 464 for Chuck, 475 for Walter. They stay really close to where they qualified, and that's about a car length victory for Chuck Bartholomew. He will take the Maryland-based ride to round number 2. I see Yandro, twin turbo minion, standing down there in the paint. Becky Cram and Bill Gregan should be our next pair, but I have been told that Bill Gregan suffered engine trouble. So this should have been the number 5 qualifier against the number 6 qualifier. They were separated by less than 1/100 of a second. On paper, it would have been a good matchup, but unfortunately, Bill Gregan suffering problems. So the local racer from right here in Bradenton, unfortunately, is a no-show. It's a good news, though, for Becky Cram. This is her husband, Joe, getting her pumped up. The Holbrook Racing Engines Whipple Superchargers ride on the left-hand side. She qualified number 5 at a 463. So the Indiana-based ride will get a single pass to round number 2. So this gives them an opportunity to try some stuff. If they want to tune it up and see just what the racetrack will take, they can do that. If they want to see if their tune-up is right on what they thought the track would take, they can do that. It leaves a lot of room open to interpretation. The only thing they have to do is take the tree under power and go to the scales. That's literally the only thing, plus keep it in your lane, of course. Sounds to me like Becky is going to make a full pass. Hooked up good, 112 to the 60-foot. Becky runs it all the way out the back door, 465 at 152. So Joe Cram says, yeah, that's pretty good. That's what we wanted. Their tune-up was right. 112 to the 60-foot, 304 to the 330, 465 with a 2 at 152.80 miles an hour for Becky Cram. And that will wrap up round number 1 of VP Racing Mattadive's Renegade. All the top qualified cars move on to the next round. We will have 5 cars remaining. That'll move us into JDM Engineering Limited Street. Again, I need Coyote stock. Coyote stock to the lanes, please. Coyote stock. Coyote stock. I need you to the lanes, please. G-Force Racing Transmissions. Coyote stock. I need you to the lanes, please, for round number 1. All right, here comes our first pair in JDM Engineering Limited Street. We're going to go quarter mile on this. These are full weight cars. I mean, in some cases, 34 to 3,800 pounds with a street type power adder. Yeah, like a P1X Procharger, for example. That's what the UPR backed ride of 3-time and defending champion Bill Putnam is using on the right side. Dan Rentz, the number 4 qualifier on the left side. Guy that just moved up from Coyote stock to try his hand in the faster class here, but he faces a tall mountain to climb as Bill Putnam is qualified almost a second faster than him. And Dan Rich having trouble right off the starting line. Bill Putnam all the way down. Top man says 8:35, 158 miles an hour. He qualified with an 8:34, so that's a solid lap. And Sherrod will go back and check tire pressures for us. He is the main man behind all the efforts of Bill Putnam, and he likes to try to divert attention away from all his jobs, and he basically says he's head tire checker. And he got a really cool tire gauge, I remember it. Yeah. He's also the guy who probably works among the hardest people at UPR Products. Go say hi to him, and he can hook you up with some great suspension products. They got some great tools over there as well, including some really thought-out AN wrenches, in my opinion. So go visit the UPR Products trailer, located right behind the burnout box. Attention in the bits, attention in the bits. I need the 860 street race class for round number 2. 860 street race class for round number 2. Need you to the lanes, please. The 860 Suncoast Performance Converters and Transmissions street rate class, round number 2. Here comes our second pair in JDM Engineering Limited Street. Our number 2 qualifier on the right-hand side. Oh, no, sorry. I thought he was on the right-hand side. No, he's on the left-hand side. That's Stacy Roby. St. Mary's, Ohio, 2014 Mustang, another Procharger fed ride. Qualified number 2 with an 830 with an 865 miles an hour. Will face Del Holbrook, who is trying to find his way in the limited street class, made the step up from modular muscle and open comp, the beautiful 2017 Mustang out of Michigan. Over on the right-hand side. So the favored line left side. Holbrook looks like he got a hold of the racetrack this time. He's going to at least give Roby a good shot at it. Top end scoreboard says Roby for the win. 8:36 at 164 for the Ohio back ride. Holbrook runs his best pass of the weekend. 883, 158, and comes up just a little short. Here comes your number 1 qualifier. Samantha Moore, the number 2 points finisher from last year. The Holbrook Racing Engines Procharger Racing backed 2014 Mustang. Number 1 qualifier with an 815, backed up with an 816 and an 818. So she gets a bye run, being the number 1 qualifier with an odd number of cars in round number 1. So she will go to the semifinals. Samantha Moore taking the left-hand side, probably looking to see what she can get out of the racetrack here. 129 on the 60-foot for Samantha. 527 to the 8th. Top end says 832 at just 141 miles an hour. So she lifts early and still makes the quickest pass of the session. Hey, is that boosting photography down there? It sure looks like him. All right, here we go into Coyote stock and factory stock, ladies and gentlemen. A factory stock coming up first. The Richmond Gear factory stock class. Chris Niebauer and John Leslie Jr. Good pair to start out with right here, the number 2 and number 3 qualifiers. Niebauer, the beautiful, I love the, factory appearing, all the right badging and the right stripes, flat hood, 1985 GT on the right side, and the Rockstar, former class champion John Leslie Jr. left side. Chris Niebauer has a much better qualifying time by about 1/10 and a half, so Leslie's going to need to pull out a trick here. And unfortunately, he finds tire spin again. So Niebauer out in front. All he needs to do is stay in front. Top end scoreboard says 10:21, 130 for Niebauer. Unfortunately, traction woes will stop John Leslie Jr. from advancing today. 10:86 at 130. And that is all she wrote for John Leslie Jr. Once again, I need the 860 street race class. 860 street race class. To the staging lanes to be paired up, please. 860 street race class. Need you to the lanes to be paired up, please. Bracket open, round number one. Bracket open, round number one eliminations. Put a dial in on the left side that is large enough to be seen from the top floor of the tower, please. Come to the tower side staging lanes. Round number one of brackets. Round number one of brackets. Each to the lanes, please. Mike Bowen in the Maverick. Tom Mueller in the Cobra. Number one qualifier on the left, number four qualifier on the right. The whole shot going to Tom Mueller on the right-hand side. Bowen has to work to get back ahead. The Maverick's digging, and he gets there. 10:22 at 131, 10:59 at 127 for Tom Mueller. The Ohio-based Cobra will park it, and the Maverick will go on to the final round. So your final will be the number one and number two qualifiers, Chris Niebauer and Mike Bowen. They were separated by 0.05 of a second in qualifying. They were separated by 0.02 of a second in their round one eliminations. So hopefully Gavin Carter will tell me if I'm wrong. But based on ET from round number one, Niebauer would have lane choice in the final. 10:20 over 10:22. So we're going to do a little track prep here, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to Coyote stock. Round number two of Coyote stock. We have 9 cars remaining for the crate motor class, originally thought up by Ken Bajonas. It has come quite a ways. Originally it was a 10-second class for about 440 horse crate motor, a Coyote motor from Ford Performance. How cool is it that Ford Performance would actually come up with a specific crate engine designed just for this class? They also sell a control pack with a fixed tune. You are not allowed to alter the tune or do anything to the engine. It stays sealed. And some of the guys and gals that got into it at the very early onset said that they had well over 1,000 runs on the engines because they could run them in regular index competition at their local tracks, make test and tune passes, and in some cases strip a bunch of weight out of the cars and put lightweight components on them and run them at races like, say, the World Cup Challenge up in Maryland at the end of the year, where they allow naturally aspirated combinations to come in much lighter than we run them in NMRA competition. I believe those cars, the best run that had been made was made by the Joker, and I think he ran in the 930, 940 range. So obviously that's a lot faster than when they were running in the 10s, but now they've worked their way down into the 950s and 960 range. And again, probably the most affordable and popular heads-up class out there because we take the cost out of the engine and the controller, but now they have moved into very dedicated transmissions. Originally, they were limited to original style 5-speeds, and when people were breaking them left and right, and you'd usually have to carry a spare or two, the decision was made to allow purpose-built transmissions. So the G-Force Racing Transmissions Coyote stock class, now a lot of the money and time being spent in the driveline and the suspension to get them to hook up right. And the suspension is where it's all at. With a small 10-inch tire, everything has to happen right on the weight transfer. When you drop the clutch near red line and it doesn't hook up, then your opponent has a much better chance of winning than if you set the front end too loose, it does a sky shot, and that won't get you anywhere either. We've seen lots of wheels-up launches on these cars because they definitely want to get all the weight transfer, but then if you have to pedal out of a wheelie, that'll waste valuable time as well. So I'll quit talking about the what-ifs. Let's talk about what happens on the racetrack. Kevin McMullen and Nathan Stymist. Our first pair out, Nathan Stymist, the number 4 qualifier, little baby blue Fox Mustang. He ran 974. Kevin McMullen, the gray Mustang, ran 983. He was the number 12 qualifier. So he had an upset in round number 1, and McMullen looking for another one here as he stages up. He's ready to go. Nathan rolls in and goes deep, and he gets hole-shotted by Kevin McMullen. Kevin McMullen with a 0.2 of an advantage on the Christmas tree. Is he going to be able to hold on for the upset? Yes. 988 taking out a 989. Nathan Stymist rolled it in deep, and it got in his head. He was late on the tree, and Kevin McMullen was on time, and the number 12 qualifier lives to play in round number 3. That is why we don't race on paper, ladies and gentlemen. We run them on the racetrack. So Kevin McMullen, the number 12 qualifier, going to round number 3. Here comes the first guy ever in the 9s in competition, Frank Baltanus. And if I want to be exactly correct, it's Frank J. Baltanus. The black Mustang on the right side, number 3 qualifier, 973. He will face Jacob Lamb, another former world champion. The Kentucky-based 86 Mustang, left side. Higher qualified car on the right, underdog on the left. And this time, tire spin hits Jacob Lamb. Frank Baltanus will get around the whole shot early, stretches out the lead, and gets a win, 981 to a 1010. 860 street race, 860 street race. We are missing one of you for round number 2. We don't want to run without you. Leticia Hughes will be upset if we run without you. She says, can you please come to the lanes? So Leticia Hughes, one of the driving forces for the 860 class, is up here keeping me company in the tower as the Suncoast Performance Converters and Transmissions 860 street race class. That's a mouthful to say every time. Yep. So we're going to concentrate still on Coyote stock. We have a couple more pairs to go, and then we have a single, and we will go into the 860 street race class. And Leticia Hughes, you want to call 860 street race round number 2 with me? Okay. So we'll stage up Dennis Harmon and Shane Stuyvesant, the number 14 qualifier, looking for an upset left side. The number 6 qualifier, Shane Stuyvesant, on the right side. Left side has a little hole shot going for him. It's going to be close at the top end. No, gets around the hole shot. Shane Stuyvesant, 987, beating a 993, 38 thousandths of a second margin of victory for Shane Stuyvesant. But Dennis Harmon kept Shane honest. They were separated by only 100th of a second at the 8th mile. So Shane was looking at the back of Dennis Harmon's car for a while and finally got around him. Charlie Booz Jr., your number 1 qualifier. The Booz Brothers Racing and Strain Engineering backed 1990 Mustang out of Pennsylvania, qualified with a 968, will face local Florida racer Austin Shipp, a beautiful 4-eyed 1986 Mustang on the left. He qualified number 10 with a 981 and upset his opponent in number 1 round of racing. So Charlie Booz Jr. getting himself mentally prepared over there on the right-hand side. Left-hand side, Austin Shipp, cool as a cucumber, rolls it in and says, let's boogie. Charlie Booz is staged. And Austin Shipp got second gear in the air and had a whole shot victory working for him until he had to put it back down. Charlie Booz Jr. gets around him, 973 to a 1015. Austin Shipp gave it all he had as he banked second gear in the air. He had an 800th hole shot working for him, but Charlie Booz Jr., too tough, goes 973. The best ET of the round so far. And then I'll bring up Randy Soper, our number 2 qualified car. He went 973 in time runs. He's an elevator. I'm trying to say elephant and elevator. It doesn't work that way. He's an elevator technician by trade. The 2004 Mach 1. Yeah, purists are probably cringing somewhere, but this is the way I like them. Take them out there and use them. Once again, I have a final call for 860 street race. Final call for 860 street race. Need you to the lanes. Randy Soper, the Michigan-based 2004 Mach 1. Wheels up, grabs second gear, and still doesn't lift. So he goes across the 60 foot on the back tires. 992 or 136 for Randy Soper. He will go to round number 3. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am joined here in the tower. I'm joined here in the tower by Leticia Hughes. Leticia, one of the driving forces behind the 860 street race class here. Made its debut at Bradenton Motorsports Park, backed by Suncoast Performance Converters and Transmissions. And Leticia, we talked a little bit when you came up earlier before round number 1 about there is a growing number of cars, obviously, that a lot of them are street cars, and a lot of drivers don't necessarily want to cut the cars up, put a lot of cage in them, especially a funny car style cage. And 21 cars show up for a first ever event. I know you had a big hand in this. Obviously, your car went through a lot of changes. I'm throwing a lot at you on this first question, so let me dial it back just a minute. What kind of went into this process? I mean, you went from a 10-second ride to an 8-second ride, so obviously you kind of figured, you know, it's something where the class, I think, was needed based on the turnout.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the biggest issues right now is trying to figure out where your daily driver street cars kind of fit in at. And there's a growing number of those. The evolution of racing is changing in general. You know, a lot more people are modding, you know, brand new cars. So it's not everybody just going out building a race car that they can't drive it anywhere else. You know, we want to be able to show that we can put the car down the track, run 8s, and, you know, do it safely and actually drive it to dinner afterwards.
Yeah, you had one of the second biggest turnouts as far as an NMRA championship class. And again, for a brand new class, first time ever that you're running it, for you, you know, to do all the changes to your car and, you know, bring out that many cars, and you talk about how many people were competitive. You know, we had 2 drivers that ran 860 qualifying. And, you know, again, you see lots of different combinations. We had nitrous cars. We had naturally aspirated cars. We had a lot of people that have been running the NMRA for quite a while, especially True Street, where they felt like there wasn't an 850 award, and now they have a new home. And, again, like I said, that's got to make you feel good for all the hard work you did in not only this class but your own car.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we couldn't be more pleased that, you know, I have 21 cars to show up, you know, and, you know, yeah, there's tweaks. We've got to, you know, look at a few things, but, I mean, overall the class was perceived very well. You know, there's a lot of talk, you know, about, you know, Rockingham that's coming up. Everybody seems really excited about it. One of the biggest issues is, you know, with our 850 cage certs, you know, we're not wanting to go any further, you know, on a cage at the moment. You know, a lot of people aren't. And, you know, we want a place to run all out. True Street's a great class. You know, I ran it for years. You know, I love that aspect. But at the end of the day, you know, we're racers. We want to line up against somebody. We want to know that the tree matters. We don't want to just do an average of the time run. We want to know that, you know, it matters how you leave the line. It matters what your reaction time is. And you got to, you know, run your number up top.
And the interesting thing, it kind of ended up becoming a dip your foot in the water twice deal for you, because when you and I first met each other back in November at the Mod Nationals at South Georgia Motorsports Park, we talk about the fact that your car was running 10s at the time. It was a naturally aspirated setup. You did really well in what would be kind of what they called a daily driver class, full weight, full interior. And again, you made a huge change. You went from, you know, that setup in November to basically cutting your car completely apart, whole new engine combination. Let's throw a Whipple Supercharger on it, and you got a sponsorship as a brand ambassador for Suncoast. And again, that's a big change. I mean, tell me, like, how that all came about, and was there any nerves for you at all? I mean, that's a big jump.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was a lot that changed, you know, but I feel like I put down a really good foundation, you know, over the last several years racing. You know, am I a new racer? Absolutely. But, you know, I pushed the limits in the all-motor world and, you know, had one of the fastest all-motor S550s in the world. And, you know, to go mid-9s in that, you know, it's great. So I kind of proved myself in that world, and I thought it was time to step up with the big guys and, you know, show them I could do it there too. Yeah, so, you know, we had, you know, a TKM motor put in the car. We had an 850 certed cage. I got my cert this weekend. And, you know, paired that with Whipple Superchargers came on board. We have a 3.8 Whipple. You know, and Suncoast has always been a part of my team for the last couple of years. And, you know, they just really loved, you know, my passion and, you know, my drive to, you know, advance racing and, you know, kind of change with the times. So, you know, we had a big challenge, I won't lie. You know, I was definitely nervous on my first pass. I expected something, you know, to go wrong. I expected, you know, something to happen that maybe I wasn't, you know, as good of a driver as I thought I was. I wouldn't know how to do it. So, you know, I was really pleased. So to put down an 8.69 on the second pass ever in that new setup, we couldn't be happier.
No, that's again, you know, I think the other thing that obviously, you know, bears repeating, it's not something where we want to make it seem like it really is men versus women, but obviously the great thing that you also bring to the table is you are a woman in drag racing. And I still think that although there are lots of great classes, there's lots of avenues where people can race besides just the NMRA. I feel like a lot of women can get intimidated by seeing how fast some of these cars are, seeing, you know, the performances and all the safety equipment you have to wear. And, you know, here we go with the 860 class. We're starting with William Luan, #1 qualifier, and Randy Thomas. And again, both of these cars, 850 proven rides based on the cage, and they fit perfectly into this class. You have a favorite here? Well, he got hole-shotted by Randy Thomas, so he's going to have to work from behind to get there. Randy Thomas way out there in front. The only thing he needs to make sure is doesn't go too fast. 864 at 139, and William Luan, unfortunately, goes down swinging 980, 123, the number one qualifier, unfortunately, on the trailer. And that's a perfect example of why we don't race on paper. And again, we talk about the fact that, a lot of people, including championship-winning drivers, have said that sometimes they get intimidated by racing a woman. It's been proven that women usually have better reaction times than men do. Bracket open, load up please. Bracket open, suit up for round number one. Bracket open, suit up for round number one as we bring up Louis Mulatto and Houston McLean. Out of the McLean Motorsports Camp, the turbocharged Mustang over on the right side. And they really nice. I mean, the fact that you see these still in two-tone instead of being all one color, the GT Mustang of Louis Mulatto over on the left side. So, again, talk about the fact that there are, women participating in classes where, again, they might be intimidated, but you're an exact reason why nobody should feel like they can't get out there and participate with every guy that's out there racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the women in motorsports, but they are the best racer in that class, and the best racer on the track that day, put down the best pass I can.
A little bit of tire spin for Louis Mulatto. That's all that Houston McLean needed. 872 taking out the 920 as he got on the brakes to make sure he would get to round number 3. Here comes another guy who has participated in every spring break shootout. So, again, talk about the fact that the 860 class is having this much of an effect actually on both of these drivers. Jeff Bloom out of Canada, Tony Whetstone out of Tallahassee. Both of these drivers have won in True Street and won in spring break shootout, and they're here participating in the 860 street race class. So, again, showing you how much pull and how much desire this class has brought in its first race ever. Leticia, what does that mean to you?
Oh, I mean, it means a lot to us. I mean, we really, I didn't know this was a team. It was such a long race. Even the boys, black racers, different racers out there. That we just wanted a place to line up and run them all out with our cert.
Unfortunately, Tony bumping through the beams for a red light, and Jeff Bloom will get the victory and move on to round number 2. A couple of heavyweights going down right there as unfortunately only one of them goes to round number 3. Leticia, you talk again about all the changes you made in the car. What would you say to any of the females, and there are a lot of them out here at NMRA this weekend? I mean, obviously, you've been into racing for a while, so what would you tell them? What kind of encouragement would you give the female racers on how to get a start, what to make them feel comfortable in getting out and participating, getting out of the grandstands and being part of the show on the racetrack?
Practice, practice, practice. Doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, we're all out here. The best guy can go down first round. So don't ever think that just because you're a girl, you can't do it just as good.
No, absolutely. And again, you talk about the fact that on the second pass, you run within a tenth of a second of the index that you were supposed to run with a whole brand new combination. And obviously, again, I'm sure that anybody would never expect a flaw-free weekend. Too many F's. But obviously, I know you and your crew are going to go back and work hard at it to be at the next race at Rockingham. And again, I hopefully look for the class to grow even more. And what else can you tell us about the 860 class? And again, we're behind the scenes. I know it wasn't just you, but a lot of other people had a lot of input in it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people had a lot of input. Honestly, I mean, we want you to just go look up the rules, see if the car fits. Come out and give it a try. Anything can happen, even if you're the Rockingham or you live close to Holbrook, you live close to Bowling Green. Come out and give it a try and, see, how you like it.
Well, obviously, if anybody wants to get a hold of you and probably get, I would say, some tips and tricks about the class, they'd want to check out Leticia Hughes Racing, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So you can find you, I know, on Facebook. Are you on any other social media
I'm
platforms?
on Instagram as well, TikTok, the whole works.
All right, so if you want to kind of see a little bit more behind the scenes on what Leticia Hughes and her team went through to get her car ready for this year, and it was interesting watching the build come along. I know you were, like you said, you were nervous at a couple of spots, but you made it here to Bradenton. You made a run that I think was pretty good, and again, heavy car like yours, a street car, you're going to test out the limit of some of these parts, and that's great because that's how we figure out how to make them better and how to make them more reliable. I mean, you're treading new ground. You're building a new road to go down, and I think that seeing again the participation in the class is great. So, anything else you want to let us know about your racing efforts?
No. I mean, I think we came into this weekend. I expected some issues. I expected something with the motor. I expected something with the Whipple maybe. the good part is we got Suncoast Performance, Robustus Powertrain behind us, and we're all committed to making this.
So once again, ladies and gentlemen, Leticia Hughes, one of the driving forces behind the Suncoast Performance Converters and Transmissions 860 Street Race class. She will obviously be back to play at our second stop of the year. And once again, thank you so much for coming up to the tower. We appreciate your hard work on what looks to be a bright future for the 860 Street Race class.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So we're going to go into bracket action, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be down here for just a minute, and we'll be right back with you.